Hello there, dear viewer. Okay, this is a very exciting Skyrim build to me. It's a sneak archer with a lot of extra options. Not your dad's plain boring sneak archer, but a Dwemer themed explorer and wanderer, the master of strategy and crowd control, setting up the battlefield with mechanical and magical traps before he even starts shooting his magic arrows. He is a Dwemer from Morrowind, capable of surviving the ash-filled wastes of that province, experienced with exploring the eastern Dwemer ruins, now going to Skyrim to make some money and get some knowledge of the western variety of the Dwemer culture. All his understanding of the Dwemer lore and technology comes from said exploration and trial and error learning. This is a character idea I have wanted to make for years, but there was always something missing. It had been quite hard to find a decent looking Dwemer light armor among the mods, for example, but it exists now in Creation Club and Anniversary Edition. The older perk overhauls allowed for a lot of tactical trap placement, but changed the overall character progression too much to my tastes. But now we have a set of mods that allows you to use the more vanilla-like Vokrii perks with a few extra perks from Ordinator perk overhaul. Elemental arrows and backpacks are also part of the vanilla anniversary experience, which makes the build more accessible to people who don't like bloated load orders or are generally new to modding. So this Dwarven themed trapper ranger idea can finally make it to my channel. Yes! So, let's look at the mods we need. It can be all done in 6 to 8 mods and one other for the beautiful fur hood I am wearing, which is for pure aesthetics. He will look almost as cool in the apprentice hood you can buy in Solitude in vanilla. So, Ordinator perks and Vokrii need both be installed and then overridden with Vokrus, which results in Vokrii perk trees with some extra perks. You need to have them loaded in the right order: Ordinator, Vokrii, then Vokrus. Tonal Architect is a nice and simple mod, adding a few Dwemer themed spells and summons. We use it mainly for the magical mines, which can be extremely destructive if you paralyze enemies as they enter the mine's zone of danger. The master level mine, the radio bomb, can be improved with the Dwemer clutter items upon casting. Dwemer clutter will also be used to craft Tonal Architect spell tomes at a forge, so you should probably grab that armored Dwemer mud crab from Cancelmo. The crab will occasionally give you some extra clutter, and if you craft the ethereal staff at the Ethereum forge, you can also spam its summons until the staff fails, also giving you some Dwemer clutter. Summermyst enchantments are going to help the build immensely, especially as always the Amplified Destruction enchantment, allowing us to improve the damage of the spells we occasionally cast, increase the amount of attributes absorbed with our arrows, and the damage of the spells we cast with each arrow shot. It's going to be a massive improvement. Tonal Architect also has Dwemer summons, which can be powered for extra damage and abilities with weapon staff charges. This means it's a good idea to carry some spare enchanted items so you don't waste the charges of your main bow. All that forces you to think about carry weight a lot, so a backpack is necessary, and you can also use Bandolier bags and pouches mod for even more inventory capacity. Dwemer goggles and scouters were also used. It completes the feel of a steampunk explorer and gives us a few useful powers like wide range detect life effect, but without using your precious magicka, which is mighty convenient since as a hybrid character we don't have a lot of magicka to spare. Finally, as an option, we have the throwing weapons Lite, which is not a perfect mod, but we don't really use the subpar unfinished features like throwing knives and axes. Instead, we focus entirely on throwable oil pots and grenades, which are nice for crowd control. Once you have your enemies paralyzed within the range of a piston mine from Tonal Architect, why not throw some burning oil into the mix to deal even more damage over time to those helpless suckers? Now for the starting choices, the race is the Dark Elf. That's mainly for the story reasons, although the natural fire resistance and the Ancestor's Wrath daily fire cloak can be really helpful early game. A Breton or a High Elf could be a better choice though, especially that we need some extra magicka and are using vanilla Atronach Stone. Give me a second for punching my computer. Oh yeah, okay, it's all done. Now I feel better. Yes, Vanilla Atronax Stone. Again, I feel violated. We do need the extra 50 Magicka though. We need it bad. And the 50% just to absorb spells is, as always, a godsend. The stone means we need very few level ups towards increasing Magicka. Your Magicka total should reach 200, maybe 230 at most. And that's that. So the overall attribute spread looks something like 1 point of Magicka per 3 of health per 1 of stamina. Stamina is used mainly for sprinting and aiming, which you don't really need to do a lot of. Don't be afraid to focus on health entirely in your first 10 levels though. You should start the playthrough as your typical sneak archer with upped alchemy and very occasional use of magic, if any. Start spreading into magical skills, say after level 15 or 20, and then around level 30 you can safely start power leveling your enchanting all the way to 100 to become more like what you see in the video. Even with the finished build, your total Magicka may not be enough to cast master level spells, but luckily we perk alchemy too, so just chuck a 45 Magicka potion if you want that juicy radio bomb spell to come into play. So we need to put perks in a lot of skills: sneak, archery, light armor, lockpicking, all 3 crafting skills, and then just a few points in destruction and conjuration. The wide skill spread of the build may force you to play a few levels more than the usual 50. I tried to make the perk choices efficient, with a few perks taken optionally just to complete the feel of it, but maximizing all of them may bring you to around level 55. Sorry about that, but I think it's worth a bit of a longer playtime. In archery we take the combat archery perks actually, because they allow for a lot of crowd control, and with the complete build we will reach high resistances and max armor rating, allowing us to switch from sneak archery to combat archery very reliably. Gore will move enemies back a few steps if you shoot them while they are power attacking. This is very useful with the Lion's Arrow perk, allowing you to unleash hell of many consecutive spells flung from your bow for no cost in Magicka and without being hit. Of course, Power Shot, Ranger and Quickshot are going to be crucial. Quickshot increases the rate of your attacks and your spells cast through Lion's Arrow. Have I said Lion's Arrow enough? Yes, you totally need both ranks of this wonderful perk as soon as possible. It's a great perk that also requires of you to have Destruction Dual Casting unlocked. Once you dual cast your projectile spell of choice, you will cast it with each fully drawn arrow shot henceforth. I opted for the Elemental Blast or Elemental Burst spells from Anniversary Edition. They both deal fire and shock damage, actually magic, pure magic and shock damage, and half of it as Magicka damage. With Amplified Destruction enchantments and late game handmade Fortified Destruction potions, they can approach 100 damage from each element. Hunter's Discipline can be quite useful here because we want to use the Anniversary Elemental Arrows, which are not that easy to find or craft, but it is fully optional. Standard arrows will do just fine as well. In light armor we only need some pretty basic perks with training and fit to max out armor and regain the normal movement speed. The right hand mobility related perks are less important here. I still went up the branch up to War Dancer, but you will often prefer to stay in one good spot to sneak attack first and then wait for the approaching enemies to fall to your tripwires and bear traps. This means you have less use for agility and Windrunner. However, the War Dancer perk is quite useful. It will give you a 20% extra attack damage while you wear all light armor, which of course you wear all the time. The buff will be blocked for 10 seconds after you take a hit. But since you are so good at hiding and sneak attacking, you will keep the buff most of the time. In Sneak, we quite obviously need Sneak Attack and Deadly Aim to improve our ranged sneak attacks. With some exquisite smithing, our sneak attacks will take down many enemies in one hit. Those who still stand will then get a highly empowered elemental burst to the face. Both ranks of silent movement are necessary. The Dwarven mail armor is really heavy for a light armor, meaning it will be quite noisy. This perk will eliminate that problem. But most importantly, we want all the tripwire perks from Vokrus. You will be able to place a tripwire anywhere in the world. With Whiplash, the enemies who trip on it will take a penalty to their armor rating of 1000 points. This is wonderful against some heavily armored foes and generally gives you a lot of time to pepper the enemy with arrows and elemental bursts because of the excruciatingly long Skyrim standing up animation. Light food can also be useful so that you don't trigger traps. With Dungeon Master perk in lockpicking, it means you will never need to worry about most traps in dungeons, while your enemies will take a lot more damage from them. Marked optional though, since we mostly use the traps we place in the world ourselves. Speaking of which, we want the entire Bear Traps branch on the left-hand side of the lockpicking skill. With Bear Traps perk, you can craft up to 2 Bear Traps. You can then drop them in the world somewhere. By themselves, they will do very little. But once you unlock the Lockjaw perk, they will also start to incur some armor rating penalties, and with Big Game Hunter, they will rearm themselves every 2 seconds. In some narrow hallways and other tight spots, you can use such a bear trap to lock enemies in a perpetual state of stagger, taking damage and getting an armor penalty. So place the traps well and they will protect you very well. Then we take the entire lockdown branch, which allows us to hack Dwemer automatons. All of them pretty much, with hotwire perks causing them to fight for you and follow you around, and overdrive will make them stronger and faster. Take a good Dwemer construct with you for a dragon fight. As an option, if you play for more than 50 levels, consider the Dungeon Master perk as mentioned. With this one, the pre-existing traps in dungeons will deal 5 times the normal damage to your enemies and half to you. Very appropriate for this build. In Alchemy, we want Benefactor and at least 2 ranks of concentrated poison. Both beneficial and harmful brews will be extremely helpful. You definitely want to keep a stock of Fortified Destruction and Fortified Archery potions. Paralysis and weakness to magic poisons are going to help annihilate most enemies with ease. A very useful poison of slow and weakness to magic can be made from a salt pile and some creep cluster, which are really easy to come by. Obviously, the easiest way to get a lot of Fortified Destruction potions is by harvesting Nightshade and Glowing Mushroom as often as you can. To use our spells efficiently, we need mastery in both Conjuration and Destruction. This will eventually halve the cost of your frequently cast spells. Dual casting in Destruction will also be necessary to imprint the Elemental Shot spell into our arrow shots with the Lion's Arrow perk. In smithing, we only need Dwarven smithing and Arcane Blacksmith so that we can easily reach the armor cap with our Dwarven mail and improve the Dwarven Blackbow of Faith. The skill value itself doesn't need to reach the 100, around 80 is what should be enough, with some handcrafted fortified smithing items and potions. Enchanting, on the other hand, we absolutely want to reach 100, so we can grab that famously balanced extra effect perk. Take Armor and Regalia Enchanter as prerequisite. Your weapon is going to be the Dwarven Blackbow of Faith, so you don't need to craft any weapons yourself. Here's what you need in terms of gear. We need Dwarven Blackbow of Fate, Fortify Archery and Amplify Distraction on a circlet, Fortify Archery and Resist Magic on a ring, Resist Shock and Amplify Distraction on a necklace, Mark and Recall and Resist Shock on another necklace, Fortify Distraction and Fortify Conjuration on the armor, Fortify Distraction and Fortify Conjuration again on a Dwarven Scouter, Resist Frost and Fortify Sneak on the boots, Deadly Reach and Recharge weapons on the gauntlets, and then a Hunter's Backpack. Yes, the Dwarven Scouter is a free enchantment slot, which I happily used to cut the magicka cost of my spells more than I could with just the vanilla slots. And yes, we use 2 different necklaces interchangeably. One of them has the Mark and Recall effect, which can be extremely helpful if you mess up your stealth, get detected and even surrounded. When you equip an item with Mark and Recall, it will mark your current location. You will be instantly teleported to that location when you unequip this item. But since 2 instances of Amplified Distraction can improve all your damage dealing spells and the enchantment of your bow, sometimes it's best to wear a necklace with that effect to stack with the Amplified Destruction on your head. Your gauntlets are going to add a lot of flexibility to your combat style. Recharge Weapons enchantment slowly regenerates the charges of your equipped weapon. Very useful for us because we use those charges to buff the Tonal Architect summons with extra damage, movement speed, and some abilities. With Recharge Weapons, you can use your Precious Bow to do that, and then just keep fighting as your charges slowly regenerate. Deadly Reach effect on the same gauntlets make the casting range of your touch and location spells infinite. Basically, you can cast those spells wherever you want. It means no less that you can place your summons wherever you want and place your magic mines wherever you want. Very useful after you have your tripwires and bear traps already placed and maybe don't want to move a lot until some enemies get closer to you. Given the weight and the noisiness of your armor, one instance of Fortify Sneak on your boots will be much needed to keep the enemies searching for you but not finding. When they walk around wondering where the hell did all the explosive arrows come from, they can sometimes walk into a tripwire or a bear trap they have never noticed before. Other than that, the gear is geared towards magic and elemental resistances, which is less important early on when we focus entirely on sneak, long-distance kills, but later when all our spells and items are ready, entering open combat is going to be an option where your massive resistance and maxed out armor rating are going to yield some very tasty results. Do remember to make yourself a set of Fortify Alchemy items and then craft a powerful batch of Fortify Enchanting potions before crafting your final set of items. Also, this loadout is for legendary difficulty. You may need less slots for Fortify Archery and Amplified Destruction effects on Master and lower. Here is a short and sweet list of the main spells. We use mainly the Elemental Anniversary spells and a few Tonal Architect spells. The latter can be created at a forge, the former can be found in Hobbs Fall Cave, which means you won't ever need to join the College of Winterhold even for the most advanced of them. Piston Mine is a funny spell placing a Dwemer contraption shooting flaming exploding fireballs upwards when enemies get close to it. As mentioned, if you can paralyze enemies when they are within that range, they are eliminated regardless of their HP. Tonal Architect summons were also employed. They can get really powerful if you feed them with your weapon charges. It may be a good idea to carry a few enchanted daggers just in case you want to turn these summons into insta-killing machines. The daggers are usually the lightest enchanted items, so they don't take the space you need for all that Dwemer clutter. The clutter you use to improve your ulti, the master level spell of Radio Bomb, which places a bomb, of course, at your location, opens a menu where you can put the Dwemer clutter into that bomb, and then equips you with a detonator. Move away and wait for your enemies to approach the bomb, and then use the detonator. The explosion will fling all the targets into the air and deal damage depending on the amount of clutter you used, and on your Amplified Destruction items and your Fortified Destruction potions. So yes, to summarize, this bad boy is a very versatile, very clever walking disaster of a trapper. He relies on what he can craft himself, which may be a little bit time consuming, but I find it satisfying. The Black Bow, however, is a quest reward, and just this weapon alone, combined with decent sneak, is already a nice build, partly offsetting your low magic and stamina and dealing decent damage. Even though the build needs some late game stuff and maximized enchanting to truly shine, the whole playthrough should be rather smooth, given we start as a sneak archer with occasional use of magic. And of course, the great feel of a Dwemer-themed wilderness explorer is rather unique, not that easy to portray well in the vanilla game, but I think it's done quite well here. I feel comforted and satisfied. For now, we are done. Remember to give me some sugar via likes, comments, and perhaps donations. Have a lot of fun with this one, and we will see each other again. Bye bye!